I want to tell you all the story of my very first standard deck. Now, when I first started playing, it was Origins, Battle for Zendikar, and then shortly after, Oath of the Gatewatch. When I was learning how to play, I was drafting and drafting a lot. In Battle for Zendikar, everyone really wanted to play Eldrazi, so they left me with all the allies. And it left me with enough pieces to build a deck that I'd seen online, Black-White Life Gain. This is a deck where you play a bunch of allies, and they each come in and drain your opponent of life, and they give you life. The main card being Kalashria Healer, which I mentioned in another video. Kalashria Healer is 1 and a black for a 1/2 ally, and when it enters, it drains everyone else for 1, and it gives you 1 life. And it triggers again every time another one or another ally enters. You run 4 copies of that, and then you run a bunch of allies. That way, anytime you play anything, you're draining your opponent for 1. And if you get more than 1 Kalashria Healer, then it doubles, and it just gets really crazy really quickly. You also run Drana's Emissary, which is 1 a white and a black for a 2/2 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you drain your opponent for 1. You also run Cliffhaven Vampire, which is a 4 mana creature, 2/4 flyer, I think. And whenever you gain life, your opponent loses 1 life. So that way, it triggers on Drana's Emissary and it triggers on Kalashria Healer, and it just makes everything really dangerous. It also ran my buddy Chad, who's so fun to be with. You also use Drana, Liberator Malakir, and Serene Steward to put 1 counters on all your stuff to make it a little bit bigger and more resilient to removal, and then Zulaport Cutthroat to punish your opponents for getting rid of your stuff. So imagine a board with like a Kalashria Healer, a Drana's Emissary, a Cliffhaven Vampire, and then a Zulaport Cutthroat. Your opponent is just in a really precarious situation where if they try to remove anything, then you're just getting drained. It's so cool. It's really fun. It taught me a lot about synergy, how every card in your deck should go towards the same goal. And in Black-White Life Gain, you're trying to drain your opponent of life and trying to give yourself life by playing a bunch of allies and triggering Kalashria Healer and other things. To round out your curve, you would play March from the Tomb to get a bunch of allies back to the field and just totally blow out your opponent. It was great. Now, this deck had to compete against some really infamous decks like Rally the Ancestors, Collected Company, and then later on, Tamara Eldrazi. And I do have a couple stories. One, in order to combat Rally the Ancestors, I don't think I ever won a single game against them anyways, but to combat against them, I started playing Hallowed Moonlight, which reminded me a lot of Containment Priest. So Hallowed Moonlight says, if a creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, you exile it instead. So that includes tokens. So anytime someone would play Rally the Ancestors, if I had Hallowed Moonlight in hand, then it would just essentially be a counterspell. But I never got the chance to do it. But someone else was playing Hangerback Walker, and I just happened to have my Hallowed Moonlight main boarded because I was preparing to play against Rally. So they played their Hangerback Walker, and I think I attacked into it and killed it, and then in response to the trigger, I cast Hallowed Moonlight, and they got nothing for it. They were totally blown out. It was amazing. My other story is that I was playing against Tamara Eldrazi later in the deck's life, and the way that deck won was by using Emrakul, the Promised End, to gain control of your opponent's turn. And, you know, it's just a big 13/13 flyer with, protection from instants. It's totally busted. I was running Stasis Snare, which is kind of like Journey to Nowhere, but at instant speed. Anytime Tamara Eldrazi would cast Emrakul, at the end of turn, I would play Stasis Snare and get rid of their Emrakul. They would take my turn, and they would realize that anything they cast causes me to gain life, them to lose life, so they couldn't cast any of my spells. I basically just got to untap and take another turn. So it was, you know, another Drana's Emissary trigger. It was just so fun. They basically had no answer for it, and because they didn't run any enchantment removal, they couldn't get rid of the Stasis Snare, and their Emrakul was just gone for the rest of the game. It was disgusting. I was basically playing a deck that no one else was playing, that was competing with decks that I had no business competing against. It was really rewarding for me. It taught me that even if you aren't winning, you should always try and be yourself. You should always try and build a deck that appeals to you, and in this case, I really loved Ally, so I built an Ally deck. And it makes it even more rewarding when you actually have success, when you're expressing yourself through cards and you're able to actually hold your own. It's really rewarding. So that's basically what it taught me. What was your first standard deck, or have you ever played? I highly recommend trying it out if you're new, just to get a feel for playing with cards in basically the normal format. Let me know what was your first standard deck, and what is your opinion of standard? Just remember, it's not about the magic, it's about rallying to a common goal.